players at 2-0. Dan Jessup, 12th on the leaderboard for the year. That means he is coming off buys. He plays against Bant Eldrazi. He's got a bit of a brew this weekend, and we'll see just how this plays out.
And this is going to be a nice old-fashioned race here.
Keep in mind, this is Jeskai Ascension, not Jeskai Ascendancy.
Yep.
very different.
Definitely tricked me when I ran across this deck.
I mean, right, you said, oh, Jeskai Ascendancy, wait, is that a typo? And then click and you're like, oh no, it's not.
It was just something new and fresh. This deck's super cool.
Hallowed Fountains, first play from Dan Jessup. For Wilson Wong, it's going to be a fetch land into Breeding Pool. Maybe you'll see one of those mana creatures on turn 1. 4 Hierarchs and a Birds of Paradise are in the list. Looks like actually Wong was on the play, correction here, and that was an end-step fetch. His first play is a turn 2 Matter Reshaper off Eldrazi Temple.
And Matter Reshaper, not going to look excellent here. It is one of few creatures in Wong's deck that Jessup can actually kill, though he's not going to want to.
I'm going to go on this, and I like it here. This Ascension deck is not a combo deck. He's going to have to kill it, and when he does, Wong will get a card. I wouldn't mind having it in this right now.
Okay. I think we have differing opinions on how quickly the Jeskai Ascension deck can actually kill Wong. Let's see if we have a turn 2 Thing in the Ice or an Ascension.
All right, turn 2 Pyromancer Ascension.
We'll also get to a point when you're casting and copying Lightning Helix, Jessup will be gaining 6 life of turn every time that he casts that, so that's something to look out for as well.
Well, here's Thought-Knot Seer from Wong. We'll get a look at Jessup's hand. We see a Lightning Helix, 2 copies of Visions of Beyond, a Lightning Bolt, a Serum Visions, and a Probe. So hard to Thought Seize these decks because none of their cards actually do anything.
So I'm kind of looking at taking one of the Visions of Beyond, even though it's probably the least powerful spell in this hand.
You don't want him to get the counters on the Ascension?
Exactly. It'll slow him down on that front, and maybe Wong will just be able to clock Jessup before he really gets set up.
It is amusing that taking Visions from Beyond is the aggressive line.
Certainly.
Also, he could take one of the 2 red burn spells. If Jessup top decks a land, he'll be able to kill the Thought-Knot with double burn.
It would have to be a red land, but absolutely you're right. And Serum Visions here is the best card for setting up Jessup's hand, so I do like that pick as well. I think it was probably between that cantrip or the one that was redundant. The other engine card off the top for Jessup picks up a Thing in the Ice. So I think he's probably most interested in starting to set up his Ascension, cast these Visions of Beyond.
We'll see just what he wants to do. Can he afford to take another turn off for this Thing in the Ice? If he does, he'll miss a land drop. Looks like the answer is yes.
It does give a roadblock for the Matter Reshaper, and if it's able to flip, I do like bouncing the Thought-Knot Seer.
Oh, that's great. So he'll play the Thing in the Ice, cast Gitaxian Probe.
And the real gamble here is on Wong not having a Path to Exile, and now he knows the coast is clear on that.
Yeah, that's a Hallowed Fountain, a Forest, a Drowner of Hope, and an Ancient Stirrings. So unless Wong top decks an Eldrazi Temple, Jessup has a pretty reasonable turn here. He did not hit the land off the Gitaxian Probe, though.
The other interesting thing here is there's some argument for Jessup to probe before casting the Thing in the Ice to make sure that there's no Path to Exile. This way, he has the best odds of flipping the Thing in the Ice on the next turn. So he's taking his most aggressive line. I like it.
Yeah, he went for the max value play. So Wilson, though, great play here. Casts the Ancient Stirrings. You see he finds a copy of Thought-Knot Seer. That's going to slot perfectly into his curve, as he has 5 mana this turn and can play another Thought-Knot Seer. That's going to be brutal.
Yeah, that's quite powerful here.
Let's see what Jessup has picked up. Now, 3 Visions of Beyond. You have to be concerned about that if you're Wilson.
Well, now Visions of Beyond, if he leaves those, Jessup finds a land in 3 draws. The Ascension is just on the next turn. Also,
Double
the Thing
lightning.
is flipping.
Yeah.
I can't see an argument for any of the other cards here.
You could, I don't want to let him have that. Oh, Thing in the Ice flipping? Oh, goodness. Yeah.
Thing flips, he gets Ascension active. This is just too much value. You can't leave 3 copies of that card. And the other thing is, if you're looking at Jessup casting Helix and Bolt on the same turn, he needs specifically a red land, where leaving him with the visions, he's a lot more capable of playing the game with whatever he draws.
No, and I do like that because Wilson is swinging for 4 damage this turn. That'll put Jessup down to 11. And next turn, Wilson has Drowner, tap out Jessup's blockers, swing 11. It's exactly. So stall Jessup for 1 turn and you get it.
And
he takes Lightning Bolt.
I strongly disagree with that pick.
Yeah, now if Dan finds a blue source, right? Well, let's see if he can do it. Visions of Beyond. That's the first one. He'll draw a card. Misses. He finds his 4th Visions of Beyond.
Okay, so maybe it was just a non-factor of that thought not.
Another Visions of Beyond. Dan Jessup needs a blue source here. Can he do it?
All right, this is a big draw. This is a big
Counter
draw.
on Ascension. A probe will work. He finds Faithless Looting, and you see the frown on his face.
Boo.
He has to say go.
And game 2. That really hurts if you're Jessup. See exactly how many lands they're working with here. 9, 11.
Here's Drowner. It's going to tap out Jessup's blocker and going to win the game.
Jessup does only have 18 lands in the deck.
But Wong's going to count it, that convenient number. Right, and I mean, knowing Jessup, you could have drawn I guess he could have drawn the basic mountain too. That wouldn't really worked.
Yeah, the basic mountain with the lightning bolt gone. It's not going to do anything there.
So game 1 goes to Wilson Wong and Bant Eldrazi. That deck continues to impress. I like it. We saw it crush Jund in the hands of Christian Calcano, and now it's playing against a faster deck, and I like how it's fast enough to compete with the unfair decks and big enough to go against Jund. This is cool.
A big part of this is just Thought Knot Seer. Thought Seize is great.
That card is
How about a 4/4 Thought Seize?
Thought Knot Seer is really good.
Yeah, just gives you kind of play almost everywhere. Low to the ground, go wide decks are an issue for this deck, but when this deck looks good, it looks great.
Well, we'll go over to the sideboard. So Dan Jessup, with his Jeskai Ascension deck, he's down a game. So we're going to look at his sideboard. 2 copies of Anger of the Gods, 2 copies of Rest for the Weary. That's the life gain spell from Worldwake, I believe. 2 copies of Spell Pierce, 2 Blood Moons, 2 Geist of Saint Trapped, 2 Path to Exile, a Wear Tear, a Stony Silence, and a Graf Digger's Cage.
I really like Path to Exile here. Wong is just coming out of the gates with very efficient, powerful creatures, being able to slow him down with that when Jessup's deck is really not great at interacting with these creatures otherwise. You can make an argument for Blood Moon, though, Wong is playing this Noble Hierarch deck with a bunch of mana sources, fairly capable of finding basic lands. We could see Blood Moon, we could not. I have a good feeling. I imagine that on the play, Jessup is probably going to be casting Blood Moon, though it's not necessarily exceptional here. It does a great job of actually shutting Wong off of colorless mana, though. There's no basic waste, so if you're able to get that online, you can potentially turn off a lot of what Wong is doing.
So out of the Storm deck, I like Blood Moon on the play because you can Pyretic Ritual into it, so you can turn 2 Blood Moon people. Now, Dan can't actually do that, and as such, I guess on the play, I still think it's fine.
Yeah.
On the draw, I'm off it. Thought Knot's gonna. They're gonna Thought Knot it before I can cast it.
Right. I think that's about where I land as well. And then we go over to Wong's side. He's got cards mostly for more traditional decks.
Yeah, Fraction Gust, Stony Silence, Gut Shot, Graf Digger's Cage, Stubborn Denial, Engineered Explosives, Kitchen Finks, World Breaker, and Dismember.
I really like Engineered Explosives here. Dan Jessup has pretty much 2 business cards. He has Thing in the Ice, Pyromancer Ascension, and deals with both. Even if they're both on the table, it can just clean everything up. Stubborn Denial I like a good amount. It can counter the Ascension or a good number. It really counter anything, but that's what you're looking to hit with that card. And then I could see some argument for World Breaker. It's pretty slow, but it can deal with Ascension, which is, again, Jessup's card that matters here.
So a card I like here, Engineered, you said Engineered Explosives?
Yeah, that card's great.
That card's going to be great. It was, Stubborn Denial's good. This makes sense.
You could maybe bring in Fracturing Gust.
Oh, I'm off it. Like, he's going to counter it if you try to do that, probably. He doesn't play that many counter spells.
He's not great at countering it, but you're right. It's a liability.
All right, well, over at StarCityGames.com, we have our weekly sale. We've been running these all summer. So we have a different item from the store on sale every week. This week, well, we're playing Modern, so we figured we'd give you 15% off select Modern singles. That sale goes on all weekend, but it's going to end Monday morning. So if you see a deck you like here, make sure you head on over to the store and get it while it's cheap. We have those. You can find out more. We have a new one every single week, so make sure to head back to the site, and you can find all that on Star City Games on the main page.
Yeah. It's a really good sale to kind of comb over. If you're a cube builder, maybe looking for some cards from your cube, it happens that most of the creatures in your cube are probably Modern legal.
Dan keeping on 6. What card are you buying in Modern right now? If I'm looking at your cart, what's in it?
Bloodghast?
Yeah, man.
Greater Gargadon?
Any card that comes into play without paying any mana for it, I probably am into.
If you can cheat, you should probably cheat.
I don't know why I would. Yeah.
In deck building. Let's be clear. Let's be clear on that.
Is that
This is not an endorsement of scumbaggery.
Dan Jessup, down a game. He's on the play, but on 6 cards. He scryed to the bottom. I always like it when you have that scry and you have a fetch land in your opener, and you say, I don't know, this.
Leave it on top. Let's shuffle it away. Doing this on my terms.
Casts Serum Visions, draws Lightning Helix, finds 2 non-lands. I think he's got to ship them because Dan does not have a second land.
Woof.
Next turn's going to really matter. And this is one of the scariest starts. Wilson leads off on Eldrazi Temple.
Odds of turn 2 Thought-Knot Seer are what, 90%?
Yeah, because normally they lead on Stirrings or on a Birds, right? The Temples land 2.
Yep. Stirrings or Birds is pretty bad news for the turn 1 play, but Temple usually means something bad's happening on turn 2.
Well, the only reason to play it on turn 1 is if you have exactly 2 Temples and Thought-Knot.
Yep. You're keeping a 7-card hand that's just Temple Go with no turn 2 play. It's a little loose.
Yeah. So Dan did not draw his land, but he cast a copy of Faithless Looting and did hit his land. So it will take his turn, as you see him discard a Lightning Helix and a Pyromancer Ascension. And Wilson will casually turn 2 Thought-Knot him.
How about we clean up that other copy of Pyromancer Ascension?
How about this is why this deck was banned. This guy has no business being played on turn 2.
No.
I like it when they followed up with a Reality Smasher. That's when I feel like we're playing real fair Magic.
It's some good, clean creatures, attacking, blocking, mostly attacking.
So I played Eldrazi during Eldrazi Winter, and I still found the offensive part was when the guy who's playing creatures is doing just like tapping mana to cast creatures, right? He's doing stuff that's more unfair than my combo deck, and that was offensive. You're paying for your cards, and they're still hitting the table before my unfair things.
What I actually enjoyed most about Eldrazi Winter was the Merfolk matchup, because their deck is all about just making the largest creatures possible, but you were just like tapping 1 land and casting creatures that were on pace with what they were doing and crushing them.
Eldrazi, that deck was great. That was so
unreasonable. It was all right. You don't get too many opportunities to play decks like that.
I had a game. My first time playing was at the Grand Prix. I remember it was my second round playing it. It's like turn 1 played 2 Mimics. Turn 2 played a Thought-Knot Seer. And I just started laughing. And my opponent probably is upset now because it's not great sportsmanship. But I'm just thinking in my head what is this? Well, Thought sees you and ate you. Okay, now it's your turn. You look at the Smasher in your hand, you're like, he's dead next turn. That's fun. Well, Dan's going to have to do something quick here. He's fetched for Hallowed Fountain and cast Visions of Beyond. So it's gone down to 14. Now he'll replay another Pyromancer Ascension.
Now, Dan had to dig to find his second land, but the 3rd and 4th is really not what he wants to have in his hand right now.
Well, the problem is that Wilson's draw is just far too unfair. And actually, so you see Wilson will shock for Breeding Pool, play Noble Hierarch, swing 5.
Jessup's Heart might have skipped a beat in anticipation of a Reality Smasher
Yeah,
there.
well, you just scoop to that. It's not even complicated. But Wilson, to show off how powerful his Thought-Knot is, the rest of his hand is horrid. So, okay, he kept a hand of, I think the hand he kept was something along the lines of Temple, Thought-Knot, 3 Cavern of Souls.
Well, you know what they say.
And you're like, well, it's got the Thought-Knot, and I probably should keep.
Yeah, YOLO.
Wilson's hand has no less than 3 Cavern of Souls in it. I believe it also has a Drowner of Hope, so it's fine. But, like, there were a bunch of dead cards.
He's turning off all the Jessup's remans.
The best part is, like, this Thought-Knot's so good, I don't need these other 3 cards. Just throw them off the side of the table. Say, no, I'll beat you with just these ones.
As far as turn 2 plays go, in this format, it's
so
pretty
good.
tough to compete with Thought-Knots here.
This is on the draw, by the way. Wilson could have done this on the play. All right, Dan will play Thing in the Ice and a 4th land. He passes the turn back to Wong.
Jessup really wishes he could take the 4 counters on the thing and just put them on the Ascension. I think we might have a game if we could do that.
Maybe. Here's that one of the many Cavern of Souls and Drowner of Hope from Wilson. We'll just tap the Thing in the Ice and attack for 5. Dan will take the hit. Down to 3. He's got a Lightning Helix in hand. We'll see if he wants to use it.
I think he just cast it here.
Oh,
he has some string of draws where if he just peels cantrip, 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 he can flip the thing on the next turn.
You can always top deck 4 Manamorphoses, or I guess 3 in Dan's situation.
He has more draws where it behooves him to cast Lightning Helix now as opposed to just chaining Manamorphose.
Yeah, I mean, the concern is that when he gets that Ascension online, he's going to need a burn spell. So he's got to think of how lucky does he need to get here?
He will have some breathing room. He needs to flip Thing in the Ice on the following turn.
So
he's dead if that does not happen, right? There's just he has nothing going on if that doesn't happen.
So if one draw step, he's going to have to play 3 spells. That's where this starts.
Speaking of reasonable things to do, he's live, but it's a tall order.
He will Lightning Helix the token. Well, that won't gain him any life. He's debating between Hierarch and Token.
Yeah, and he's not in the market for a little bit of life. He needs to swing this game around.
All right, big turn here from Jessup. Big draw. He needs it. Manamorphose. Okay.
All right.
Okay, that's a redraw. That'll remove a counter from Thing in Ice. That's a win.
Yes. Part of the reason to target the Scion there, you're not getting life, but if the plan is to make an Awoken Horror, the Drowner could tap it before getting bounced. So you will get an additional 7 points here. Right.
All right. Manamorphose. All right. Thing in the Ice down to 2. Dan needs to keep the spell train rolling. Makes 2 mana. Not a land will be the end of the game. Lightning Bolt.
Lightning Bolt also going to be the end of the game.
He needs a cantrip. We were close.
2 lethal attackers on Wong's side. Lightning Bolt kills neither.
There's a Faithless Looting in Jessup's yard. Hold on.
Okay.
But it puts him down to 1 mana.
He'll be able to flip Thing in the Ice with this line.
Okay. All right, so here's flashback of Faithless Looting. Thing in the Ice down to 1. Draws Scalding Tarn, Gitaxian Probe. Interesting. We'll see if he goes for the Bolt or the Probe.
So the Bolt can only go upstairs. I imagine that we're going to stick with Probe because if you Bolt the Hierarch, the Thing trigger will return it before it resolves.
Oh, that's no good. Okay, so he's going to discard Lightning Bolt and
Scalding
Tarn. Be interested to see if Dan pays the mana or the life for Probe. It's probably mana. He's at 3.
Yeah, one thing is the Drowner makes 2 lethal Scions if he goes to 1.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. So he does not have another Gitaxian Probe in the yard. You see he has most of his spells accounted for. He's got Manamorphose, Lightning Helix, Visions of Beyond, Serum Visions. Those are all in the yard, but all right, keeps the Gitaxian Probe. And now he's going to go to 1, actually.
Okay.
Flip Thing in the Ice. Because he does get to draw a card off Thought-Knot now, because Thought-Knot left the battlefield.
True.
So he's trying to have a big turn. I suppose if he hits something like a cantrip here, then he gets to double up.
If he finds a cantrip that can flip the Ascension this turn, drawing next turn with all the mana with the active Ascension is quite good.
He drew a Thought Scour off both the triggers. So the Thought-Knot gave him a Thought Scour and the Probe gave him another one. And though he has nearly every card in his graveyard, he does not have a Thought Scour yet.
Yeah, that one kind of stings with only access to 1 blue mana from this point.
Well, now he hasn't played a land, right? Now granted, he can't fetch or shock, Or he'd have to draw a basic island or something, but debating if he wants to fire off these thought scours.
Well,
I think so.
Thought Scour is not going to do anything on Wong's turn, so I like just casting it now.
He'll pass. Yeah, I don't completely see the reason for that. I guess if he's already played a land, it depends on if he's played a land this turn, right?
Yeah. If he were to find a shock land, you want to play it there. Another
of one of those many Cavern of Souls for Wong. He's just going to play Drowner here, not even bother with Thought-Knot Seer. That second Cavern named Human, so that Noble Hierarch there is uncounterable.
Yeah, get him.
And Dan,
no mental missteps here.
Jessup's going to Thought Scour. Draws. He draws. It's a red card.
Looked like a Steam Vents. Are you sure it was a red card?
It might be a Steam Vents. That's not very good. He's at 1. Less Sulfur Falls. Boom. I like that. And I like Path to Exile when Dan's about to turn on that Pyromancer Ascension with Thought Scour. That's great.
He's got some cleanup to do. If he's able to set up the Ascensions, the Thought Scour turns on Ascension. If he finds Bolt Helix or like Bolt,
I mean, Dan could win this turn, right?
Yes.
If he finds a cantrip, now then he starts doing unfair things. He draws a Bolt.
Okay.
Check. Okay, Lightning Bolt, good. But I like how Wilson made 3 lethal attackers. Actually, check that, 4 lethal attackers.
Yeah, it's only 3 inside of combat. You need to make it so the Hierarch attacks alone to be a lethal attacker. So the question is, does Jessup go for his action now or wait for Wong's combat step?
Right. Well, Jessup can go to attacks here and see whether Wilson taps. Right?
Yeah, and it makes no difference for Wong to block or to tap it down later.
Because if Wilson just, for some reason, doesn't block here, Dan wins.
Yes. That's not what I'm expecting to happen, but it is a play.
So Dan's going to swing. The question is then, after he's tapped, does he want to do something like path both the Scions? Or, does he want to make a play inside of combat? Right, once he gets this attack off, he can attack, and then before blocks, murder all of Wilson's things.
Yes.
And then he gets 7 free damage because Wilson didn't tap here.
True. But then if he uses both removal spells, his last card in hand is a land. He needs to top deck from there.
Well, hold on. No, because Wilson has no board, right?
Wilson would have no board, but it would cost him Path and Bolt for that to be meaningful, wouldn't it? He has to deal with all 4 of these creatures because they will be lethal attacks on the following turn.
I would have wanted to attack that. I would have wanted to attack and murder everything. Then Wilson plays Thought-Knot, but Wilson's at 4. He has to start jumping. I mean, we still lose to like Reality Smasher, and there's still ways that we lose the game, but I think I'm in for that. Now, it may not matter. Wilson has another Drowner in his hand, so
all right.
Okay, it's tricky, but Dan has a he's got an active Ascension. You can't. That's really good.
With Path Bolt, Dan can kill everything that Wong has and survive this turn.
Here's Drowner again from Wong with Cavern, no countering. Two more Scions. So uses one of the summoning 6 Scions to tap the Awoken Horror. Smart move on Wong's part.
Certainly. Now it's just a matter of sending those other 3 creatures. Now Dan has to cast Bolt and Path.
Right, he has to use all the cards. So, well, fortunately, though, his Path will just get to hit both Drowners.
Yes.
That's a big win. So a double Path to Exile will hit Drowner and Scion. I thought he'd be hitting both Drowners.
I also would expect both Drowners. This is kind of curious.
Is a misstep on Dan Jessup's part? Or is there what?
So he has to cast Lightning Bolt to survive here.
Right. I was expecting a Path on both Drowners, and then a Bolt on both of the attacking Scions.
Yes.
But now Wilson will get to keep a Drowner in play.
So you do have Thing in the Ice that can block Drowner even with an Exalted trigger, but one thing to account for, if that's your line, is that Wong is also playing a Eldrazi Sky Spawner, and that just turns the Drowner back on as being lethal.
Deciding on his lightning bolt targets. Looks like it'll be both Scions.
I recommend attacking Scions.
Both Scions. Slight misstep there by Dan. Wilson, well, Wilson is left with a Drowner in play as opposed to a Scion. That actually doesn't make that much of a difference with Dan at 1, I suppose. You talked about how Sky Spawner would matter. But Dan Jessup's draw here is another Pyromancer Ascension. That's not going to do anything right now.
Right.
He's not dead, though.
Yeah, Wilson has to do something to convert this game.
Wilson checking. Do you have a Faithless Looting?
So, sort of interesting whether or not you cast the Ascension here. If Wilson just does nothing, then you're able to untap, maybe have a cantrip and really go off next turn and have more mana while you do it. However, if he has something, I don't know, maybe you can bluff him out by not casting the Ascension, because your 7/8 will eat the Drowner in combat.
I'll just cast it. Say go. He knows there's a Thought Knot in Wilson's hand. I guess there's no reason to not cast there.
Sure, you will lose it that way.
The value of a bluff very low. Wilson's got 1,000,000 Cavern of Souls and a Thought Knot Seer. He's certainly just going to start, almost certainly going to start next turn by running out Thought Knot.
Yep. If you're Wilson, Eldrazi Sky Spawner off the top will do it.
All right.
Displacer will similarly do it.
Drowner, Path.
He's got a lot
Smasher.
A lot of outs here.
All right. A draw. Does it do it? It's another Drowner. That's going to do it. Game and match 2-0 for Wilson Wong.
Yeah, so the Jeskai Ascension deck's pretty exciting, but it can fumble a little bit.